women will often try to claim any and every male dominated hobby for themselves. And here's something else I bet you haven't thought of. Okay, so what do you think about guys that are really into K pop girl groups? What do you think? Is it because those guys just really enjoy the music and respect the K pop idols' talents? Or is it because they want to the K pop idols? Which is it? I'll let you decide that for yourself, but just think how analogous that is to female sports fans. Women that are really into baseball are usually into baseball for the same exact reason a weeaboo man is into K-pop. You know, I'm sure you could be in a happy, fulfilling relationship with a sports fan woman. You'll have some good times together. She might whip up some buffalo chicken dip to enjoy during halftime. And you might even have some awesome date nights at Wrigley Field or whatever. But listen, whatever you do not let her meet the team. You do not want your sports fan girlfriend to meet the players. Because, seriously, you can think I'm full of shit if you want, but this is how it is. While you're sitting there on the edge of your seat, waiting on bated breath to see if Juan Soto manages to clear the bases with a walk-off grand slam, your girlfriend is sitting there right beside you, zoned out, soaking wet, just gooning in her mind, thinking about Juan Soto's bat. So, yeah, there's that. But really, the main reason why it's a red flag for a woman to be a sports fan is just because most of the time it's just performative. They don't actually care about sports at all. They just do it for attention. It's a lot like when a man pretends to care about social justice or women's rights or whatever. It's fake. I talked to the Indian girl today. Just a quick recap for anybody that missed my last couple videos. I finally got a girlfriend after 36 years of loneliness, and everything seemed to be going pretty well. Then we went on a date, and like the tragic comedy that is my life, we just so happened to run into the guy that took her V card. And I'm actually starting to think that might not have been an accident, but I don't know. It probably.
When I first started hiring in the Philippines in the beginning of 2019.
AI can't shred, but it can help tweak tuck geometry for faster spin. Find your edge with AI from Google Cloud. Hey, it's me, your skin. Oh no. Today? Wait, don't squeeze me. Use CeraVe blemish patches, developed with dermatologists. The only patch with 3 essential ceramides and niacinamide. Visibly flattens blemishes. Helps protect my barrier and soothes me. Ceramides on, gunk out. Absorbs gunk in just 3 hours. Blends on all skin tones. Leaves no marks. So we're good to go.
CeraVe blemish patches from the #1 dermatologist recommended acne brand.
When I first started hiring in the Philippines in the beginning of 2019, I was a bit shocked by what I saw on the resumes people sent me. photos, birth dates, and exact ages, civil status like single, married, widow, age, weight, often religion. It didn't stop there. Parents' names and occupations. In the United States, asking for any of this information during hiring would have been completely illegal. It's considered discrimination. Here in the Philippines, you can walk into any bookstore and buy pre-printed biodata forms that have all those fields ready to fill in to submit with your resume. Standard templates sold everywhere. And here's the thing that really got me at the time. When I researched this, under Republic Act 10911, which passed in 2016, it's actually illegal for employers to require age or birthday during the application process. But the practice continues because it's so deeply normalized that nobody even questions it. These days, most employers don't even ask for this information because they just know that when people submit their resumes, so often they're going to supply it anyway. As mentioned, these forms are still sold in every bookstore. People still fill them out. They're going to attach photos of themselves. And here's the thing, employers still look at them and make decisions based on age. And that's why I wasn't surprised when someone messaged me last week. For me, this became a pretty normal question about whether I had job openings. But then they added this, also very common. Is there an age limit to work with your company? They mentioned that they were 41 years old. And this is nowhere near the first time I've gotten that kind of question. People in their late 30s and early 40s asking me if they're too old to apply. Let me tell you what I've learned here for 6-7 years now, running businesses and hiring people. There's a generation of Filipinos that the market has decided to throw away. Not the young ones fresh out of college, the ones who did everything right for 15 or 20 years, the ones with actual experience and proven skills, the ones who should be at their peak earning years. But instead, they're struggling to get hired because the Philippine workplace culture has decided they're too old. At 40, let me tell you another story related to this that I've told on the channel before. The very first person that I hired was a graphic designer. I'll call her Michelle. And Michelle came in to the office to be interviewed about her skills and all the normal questions that I asked. And at the end of the interview, I said, so Michelle, let me know, why do you want to work with Purple Cow? And she gave this long, very emotional story about how her mom had worked for so many years. And now that she was so old that she wanted to get a high paying job so her mom could stop working. And I was almost moved to tears by this story. And I was thinking, like, this woman 80 or 90? I mean, how old is her mother that's been working all of these years? And I said, if you don't mind me asking, how old's your mom? And she said, 40. And I was like, 40 years old? Are you kidding me? I was older than 40 at the time and nowhere near retirement. But it shows you the kind of psyche for people, even how children might look at their parents that are surely not too old to be quitting the workforce. But so many people have been conditioned in the Philippines to start to think that they are too old for work way too soon. So let me paint you a picture based on people I've talked to. Someone in her early 40s who worked in customer service for 15 years. They started at a BPO right after college, worked her way up from an agent to team leader to supervisor. She knows the systems inside and out. She knows how to train new people. She knows how to handle difficult situations with customers that would make fresh graduates quit in a heartbeat. She's exactly
Hello, this is Shanoa. Now, regarding your question, you want to know why he's spying on your TikTok live and what he wants exactly from you. Going by your cards, it shows that he's really paying attention to what you're doing. Since you are spending time with your friends, it does seem to be triggering something in him where he feels as though he needs to put more time into trying to get some of that attention for himself. He does seem to struggle with how to communicate to you directly, so he's doing a lot of roundabout things and just behaving oddly rather than just telling you straight up what it is he wants from you. As far as what he wants exactly, it does seem that he is very attracted to you and would like to develop your relationship further. This is indicated by the final card, the Ace of Swords. If you want further details on how to progress this relationship or what the future holds between the two of you, as well as things you could do on your end to facilitate the outcome that you want, give me a call or send me a message.
Almost 10 years now. And yet I still see job postings that say age 21 to 28 only, or fresh graduates preferred, or maximum age 30, right there in the posting, just like before the law existed. And now, why is this? Well, it's because the enforcement seems a bit weak, or because companies choose to ignore it. Maybe it's because Filipinos don't tend to be super litigious, but it is definitely because the preference for young runs so deep in Philippine workplaces that a law hasn't changed the actual behavior. I've heard stories from Filipinos in their late 30s and 40s about what happens when you lose your job at that age. They start to stress out. It's not just about finding another job, about finding any job, because they know what the market is like. They know they're competing against people half their age who'll work for half the salary, and employers will choose the younger person almost every single time, even if the older person could do the job better from day one. There's something else that employees say all the time here: willing to be trained, as if they're doing you some kind of favor. Whenever people say that, I say, come back when you already know what you're doing for the job. Now, this is because they come from such a different culture where I'm hiring people based on experience and skills. I don't care about the age, but I surely do care about the skills. Why would I choose someone that I have to train from day one from scratch when I could choose somebody that already has the skills from day one? It's opposite thinking over here. Now, there's some jobs where fresh grads make sense, right? There may be entry-level positions, or maybe it's someone that's younger, but they've really put in the hard work and they show so much promise and so much talent. Of course, I'm open to younger people in that situation. But when you need people that are professionals, that need a high level of skills, hiring somebody that has a bit more years of experience often makes a lot more sense. But that's not necessarily how it works in the Philippine workplace. What matters here is being a fresh grad with a pleasing personality. According to research from Manila Recruitment in 2025, 56% of workers age 50 and up experience involuntary job separation. Many of them pointed to age as the primary reason for management decision to let them go. And once they're out, getting back in is nearly impossible. I want you to think about something for a second. In most developed countries, people in their 40s are hitting their peak earning year. They're senior managers, they're directors and specialists in their fields. They're making the most money they've ever made because they have skills and experience you can't get any other way than by doing the work for years. In the Philippines, people in their 40s are being passed over for entry-level positions that 22-year-olds are doing. Let that sink in. Too old at 40 for jobs that fresh graduates are struggling with. Now, I've talked to Filipinos who've lied about their age on applications, taken 10 years off their resume. So think about what this does to a person. You spent 15 years building skills and learning systems and becoming good at what you do. And now all of that is actually a handicap to getting you a job. You know that less experienced people are more likely to get the job than you, who's worked so hard to get where you are. Now, why is this? Well, I think it's because the Philippine job market has decided that experience isn't an asset, it's a liability. Here's what I've learned about why that happens. Fresh grads are cheaper. According to Job Board, Job Street Philippines data from 2024, 96.7% of fresh graduates earn less than 20,000 pesos per month. That explains a lot, right? The average is 16,000 pesos a month.
Dayquil Intense Flu, the daytime coughing, aching fever under your flu medicine.
How's that flu?
I got this. I don't got this.
You need Dayquil Intense Flu.
Undo your flu symptoms with Dayquil Intense Flu. You do got this.
Cold season is coming. Soften the clothes with the #1 motion tissue.
Freedom, cheap thing. Sacrificing facial hair and involuntary blood donations, sweating your tail off, and freezing your tail off, all cheap things. Making a cheap vehicle for only people like him, not a cheap thing. So we're bringing you more cheap things this year because cheap things should be everyone's thing.
Stop that. We're in public.
Oh, what am I counting? There is no way.
And fresh grads will accept those salaries because that's what's open for them. It's their first job. They don't have their own family to support yet. It's enough to send back home to the province. And they probably don't have the skills to negotiate. Someone in their 30s and 40s is probably going to ask for 1.5 or 2 times that much for the same job because they know what their experience is worth. And the reality is the Philippine workplace culture doesn't like that. According to recruitment industry sources that compile employer preferences, companies want people who say yes, sir, yes, ma'am, to everything. They want people who never question management, who don't know enough to realize they're being underpaid. And there's another thing that Caliber's 2022 research on fresh graduate hiring explicitly states. It says hiring new graduates means training your own pool of talents, which gives you an opportunity to mold a new professional as opposed to making them unlearn old habits and preconceived notions. Now, think about that. Mold a new professional, unlearn old habits. What does that translate to? Fresh graduates do what they're told. Experienced workers ask why. Younger employees are seen as more controllable. They're more willing to work unpaid overtime and less likely to know their rights under law. And even if they do, they so rarely will go and do anything about it. They're less likely to complain about poor situations that someone in their 40s might say something about. And that makes them a bit inconvenient to employers who want unquestioning compliance. So can you imagine what this does to people psychologically? Filipinos in their late 30s who feel like they've somehow failed. Not because they failed at anything, but because the market has decided they're obsolete at such a young age. They did everything right, they got their degree, their parents sacrificed for, they worked hard for 10, 15, 20 years, gained real skills, and became generally good at what they do. Now they're being
another drink into
now
water.
they're being
I don't know. Like, there's other things you can stop.
do in their sleep while watching
No,
23-year-olds
it is.
get hired
So,
to do
back
those
to it.
same jobs
So I can get
poorly,
skinny.
with them needing to be trained. Psychological damage of that is real.
I mean, it's not
and
bad.
I really don't see
40,
anybody talking
40,
about it. Now,
2,
here's what makes this
3,
especially
whatever I'm
tough.
going to
The
be this
same
year,
people
and
in
we're
their
having
40s
5
who
kids.
can't get hired here, they're the
I'll
ones
be better
getting
off,
hired
but-
overseas. They're Filipino domestic helpers in Hong Kong and Singapore or the Middle East. They're in their 40s and 50s, and sometimes they wind up in these countries in their 60s. Filipino caregivers in Canada and the United Kingdom taking care of elderly people. They're in their 40s and 50s because those countries understand that caregiving and domestic work requires a bit of maturity and patience and life experience. Now, the same countries are hiring people in their 20s as well, but they're so much more open to keeping people employed through a far wider age range and paying them far more. No wonder there is a brain drain in the Philippines. Now, another irony of this is that foreigners come here to the Philippines to retire in their 50s, 60s. They're living here and enjoying life and seen as having valuable experience and wisdom and resources. Meanwhile, Filipinos the same age can't get hired for basic jobs in their own country. They can't get hired to do work they've been doing successfully for years because they're seen as too old. So I'm also an employer here. And when people ask me if there's an age limit for working with me, you know what I tell them? I say, I don't care if you are 20 or 60, as long as you can get the job done. Or they'll say, do I need to have a college degree? And I'll tell them, I don't care if you didn't finish the 8th grade, as long as you have the skills and experience to get things done with excellence. For me, it's not the age, it's not the degree, it's who they are as a person. It's the hard skills. It's also the soft skills. And to be honest, in the Philippines, the soft skills are the things that I care almost more about than the hard skills, because you can train people to do a bit better if they're the kind of person that has experience and they're always willing to learn. It's a bit harder to train the soft skill side of things anywhere in the world. So think about what this means for families in the Philippines. Often the person that's been working all this time is the breadwinner. The family's relied on her or on him, and now she's burning through what little savings she's had, taking on debt at terrible interest rates, should try to keep kids in school, or she's watching her parents get older and need more medical care, and she can't help them the way that she used to. Not because she lost her skills, not because she did anything wrong at work, not because she somehow became less capable, but because the job market decided she aged out at 42. She could have had potentially another 25 years of working life ahead of her. And here's the thing that really gets me. This is exactly the life stage where people need stable income most. Aging parents who don't have retirement funds, kids in high school or, about to go to college. It's really the peak of family financial responsibility. And that's when the market decides you're too old to hire. Now, I'm not saying that nobody that's skilled can't work their way up the corporate ladder. I do see that as well, living here in Manila more than anywhere. But that's not something that is so available as you might think. So why am I telling you all this? Why does it matter if you're a foreigner here? Well, for the same reason the stuck generation of young people matters in the video that I posted recently. If you don't understand this context, you're going to misunderstand a lot about Filipino behavior. That person who you know who's in their 40s and seems desperate for work or any opportunity, they're not being dramatic. They just know what the market is like. They know that time is working against them, not for them. Or that person who seems overly grateful for an opportunity that seems pretty basic to you, they know how rare it is for someone to look past their age and see their actual capabilities. That person in their late 30s who's already worried about job security, they're doing math in their head. They're calculating how many more years they have before the market decides they're unemployable. And if you're here running a business, this should change how you hire. Those fresh grad preferred job postings, you're eliminating some of the most capable people in the market. People who could come in and contribute from day one. People who could train your younger employees. People who have seen problems before and know how to solve them. Philippines needs to stop canceling out their most experienced, most talented people that are still living in the country, that haven't chosen to go be a overseas Filipino worker in some other country. Skills matter, experience matters, attitude matters. Age, not too relevant. But in the Philippines, age is often the first filter, the first reason to say no. And it's destroying people to be at their professional peak. Here's what I think about that. The Philippines has this massive pool of experienced, skilled, capable people in their late 30s and 40s and 50s who can't get work. They're underemployed or struggling to find work entirely. While at the same time, businesses complain about not finding good people, about high turnover, about having to constantly train new hires. It's a huge problem, always training new hires. But experienced workers can't get hired. Employers can't find experienced workers, and they're not connecting the dots because the system is broken, because the bias for fresh grads and pleasing personalities has become more important than actual capability. So what's the solution? Well, I don't pretend to have all the answers, because this is systemic. This is cultural. This is how Philippine workplace culture values youth and appearance over competence and experience. You can't change that overnight. But you can change your own hiring practices. You can change this by talking about these things. You can change this by removing job age requirements in your postings. You can evaluate people based on what they can do and not how old they are. And importantly, you can give people in their 40s and 50s the same chance you give someone in their 20s or early 30s. This would be my plea to Filipino employers. Stop participating in a system that wastes talent and destroys people, because that's what it does. It destroys families. Not quickly, not necessarily dramatically, but slowly but surely, over months of rejection, over years of being told they're obsolete when they know they're not. All right, enough of my personal feelings about this. So here's what I want you to take away from this. Filipinos in their late 30s and 40s aren't too old to work. They're not obsolete. They're surely not washed up. I mean, I find that laughable. They're at the stage where they could be most valuable, most capable, most worth hiring. And if the Philippine job market can see that, that's a failure of the system, not a failure of these hardworking, capable, skilled people. If you're watching this and you're someone who hires here, you can choose differently. And if you're just trying to understand this place, you need to see this clearly. Because once you understand how the market treats experienced workers, all those behaviors that seemed a bit confusing before start to make perfect sense. The desperation for job security, the fear of aging out, willingness to accept less than what they're worth, and sometimes the overseas work that's going to separate families for years. It all makes sense when you understand the context. Philippines doesn't just have a stuck generation of young people. It also has a thrown away generation of experienced people, and both are being wasted by systems that don't value what they actually have to offer. Let me know what you think in the comments, especially if you're Filipino and you've experienced this yourself. Did I get it right? What did I miss? And if this gave you a different perspective, consider subscribing. I try to talk about things really happening here, not just surface level. As always.
If you know, you know. It's not a grilled cheese. Welcome to another Jujutsu Kaisen video. Guys, recently with the new chapter, they did kind of confirm that cursed spirits will more than likely not be eradicated forever. And you guys saw that I just made a video saying Jujutsu Kaisen's coming to an end, saying they're getting rid of all sorts of cursed spirits and whatever. So, I'm kind of dealing with fraud allegations and I have to make it up with this video. With that said, in this video, we're going to be talking about how Jujutsu Kaisen more than likely will be getting a sequel due to its success and all the story beats going on, like cursed spirits probably coming back. There's no real solution to this. And honestly, there's a huge chance that all of this stuff with Harmony, Marulu, and Yuji just goes completely wrong and we see something like the merger come about. I'm going to be talking about all possibilities here, so if you enjoy content such as this, don't forget to leave a like and subscribe. And now, let's get into it. So to get into the last chapter of Modulo, we see Yuji kind of just decimate Mahito in order to use his ability to synchronize with Harmony, hit all humans, and, begin the process of eradicating cursed energy for good. But as Marulu and Yuji conversate and kind of figure out the philosophy of this decision, right? Because they're taking away the will of many people. We're taking away cursed energy from people who may not want to lose their cursed energy. We're kind of changing people and changing their fates without any of their consent. And eventually, Yuji makes a decision to just say, F it, I'm doing it, and I'll bear the burden and responsibility for anything that happens. I'm around 300 years, so whatever happens, if something goes crazy, I'm sure that I can handle it. But Yuji doesn't only say this, right? As him and Marulu finally get to the point where they can actually do this, Yuji comes to the realization at the very end that, bro, we're not going to get rid of cursed energy, actually. And Marulu's kind of just huh? What do you mean? And the chapter ends there. We come to find out that this plan they're doing may not go the way we all think it's going to, and cursed energy will remain. And this is going to likely open up the possibility for another long-term sequel. And before we get into the story beats about Yuji, Marulu, why things can go right or wrong, and how whatever happens, right, cursed energy will persist. We know that. But I think it's more important to talk about real-life things before we even get into Jujutsu Kaisen. And I want to talk about how successful Modulo has been, and why I really do think that's going to be the primary motivator for Gege to continue writing these stories. It may not be Jujutsu Kaisen outright, and it can be something else with cursed energy involved, right? An indirect sequel to all of this going on, sure. But I think no matter what, Jujutsu Kaisen will continue in some shape or form in manga format. We need to be straight up here. Jujutsu Kaisen has a level of success that is just unprecedented. I mean, we haven't seen these levels of success in many years. You also have to remember that Jump was struggling to find the next big series that could last them forever and carry Jump because, again, One Piece is coming to an end soon. And I'm not saying Jujutsu Kaisen is going to become another 1,000-chapter manga in its own way, but maybe it's going to become the series that holds up Jump while we're waiting for that next big series to come. You know what I mean? Truth is, Jujutsu Kaisen is just really something Jump is going to want to keep around, or at least Gege Akutami himself, because again, the potential is unlimited with these stories at this point. And this brings me back to the story in Harmony, because with Harmony going on and Yuji and Marulu may not know what happens when all of humanity synchronized with their cursed energy and hit with idol transfiguration, we could see the merger come about. Think about that. Kenjaku has always wanted this to happen. This being that would be on its own level, its own entity, maybe free from cursed energy, maybe using a new power system can come about, because again, this is very reminiscent of the method that Kenjaku was going to use to create the merger in the first place. Something can really go wrong here, and we can possibly even see like a whole new world come out of it. Something similar to Fire Force to Soul Eater, right? I really do think that this whole Harmony thing is going to be a setup for a whole new series and possibly a whole new world, a new power system, however, still from Jujutsu Kaisen and Gege Akutami himself. But this is only one of the many possibilities that I want to cover in this video, because the way Jujutsu Kaisen works, really anything can happen at this point, and knowing Gege Akutami, it may just go horrible. There is the possibility that everything does go the way we expect it to, right? Like, cursed energy is removed from the future people of the world, with cursed spirits still remaining intact due to all the residue still being left in the places that it was left at. And I think that's why cursed spirits are going to remain no matter what, because the cursed energy is there, right? Just because you stop cursed energy from generating doesn't mean that the cursed energy that's already been out is just going to simply disappear. With that being acknowledged, yeah, maybe things do go the way we think it does, and cursed spirits only get weaker and weaker as time goes on, and there's no more sorcerers at a certain point, and Jujutsu Kaisen comes to a very peaceful resolution. Sure. But again, coming back to the merger thing, I do think the merger can really happen. I think that maybe the merger may not be as evil and chaotic as we expect it to, but the way the last chapter was just set up and where it ends with Marulu's confused face saying, huh? I can't help but have this foreboding, scary feeling that it's not going to go the way we think it will. And maybe Yuji is going to have the final fight in the series in which he does have to handle whatever comes out, or, you know, maybe something happens, right? We don't know, because this whole thing has been built up for really 200, almost 300 chapters if we count both series together from Kenjaku, and we had no idea what it could possibly be. I mean, we saw Kenjaku's like imagination of it being some big monster that loomed over Tokyo, sure, but that never confirmed anything close to what it could possibly be. We have to remember that we have no idea what the merger can be. I know I'm saying this a lot, but a lot of people are going to see this video and probably get mad because of this statement that Kenjaku said, or the picture, and think that the merger is supposed to be this one set entity. Definitely not. The fun of the merger was
Hello, this is Shanoa. And regarding, oh my god. Hello, this is Shanoa. Now, regarding your question, you want to know if Michael wants to continue this new relationship with Jasmine, and if he's completely forgotten about you. Going by the cards, while it does seem that things are going well with Jasmine, it does seem that he's at a bit of an emotional crossroads. This would be indicated by the Two of Swords, which usually represents someone needing to make a choice in life between one or the other. The final card, Nine of Swords, represents anxiety, bad dreams, a lot of worries and burdens on the mind and the heart. So this would indicate that he is unable to really forget about you right now. So that is giving him some doubt. It seems that he does have a lot of strong, lingering feelings towards you. So I do foresee this causing issues with his new relationship. So it would not surprise me if that falls apart and you end up hearing from him again. If you want further information as to the future between you and him in terms of getting back together and what options are best for you, give me a call or send me a message.
And because the main problem with having this conversation, and also what makes it so much fun, is the fact that it could literally be anything. I think another conversation we need to have about the potential sequel of Jujutsu Kaisen is the elephant in the room, Yuji Itadori. Yuji Itadori is immensely powerful and far beyond anything we've ever seen in the series, and having him around knowing that he will step in if things got, terrible, unsavable, he will come in and save the day no matter what. And he even just outright says in this chapter that, like, if something happens because of what we here, I'll be the one to handle it and I'll bear the responsibility. We know that Yuji will always be around, and I mean, right, they can't announce another sequel and Yuji's gonna be in it doing something, sure. And I have faith in Gege Akutami because he is the only other person besides like Meliodas and Nakaba Suzuki to handle a protagonist from the previous series being in the new series, right? I think Meliodas is probably the best example. And we can see Meliodas like flexing on the entire cast of the new series without even tapping into his real transformations. But to me, what makes Meliodas good for a long-term series and Yuji not is, again, the fact that Yuji will intervene if things got truly bad. Meliodas will do the same too, but we all know that, and it's been confirmed since the beginning, that Meliodas cannot save the world this time around no matter what. The prophecy says that, like, our 4 heroes will do it. There's nothing like that for Jujutsu Kaisen. So Yuji being around for a long-term series will always keep the stakes low because we know that if things got terrible, he's here to save us. And I bring that whole example up to show you guys that, like, this is one of the main reasons that I still think a sequel cannot happen. As long as Yuji Itadori is alive and around and free to do whatever he pleases, I can't take the stakes seriously. I did expect, like, the harmony thing with Marulu to drain Yuji of his cursed energy and probably take a lot of his lifespan away, causing him to just pass away. That's really what I wanted, because I think that would fulfill his whole character arc as the Buddha and Shikigarbha and the one who liberates all from hell. And maybe that does still happen. We'll just have to see at the end of the series. To conclude this point, my primary argument as to why a sequel still probably can't happen is because Yuji is around and stakes are going to be low with him around. We did feel tension while Yuji was around in the series and knowing that he was alive, but we only felt that tension because Yuji didn't say anything. He didn't pop up. And as soon as he said, like, yeah, I'll handle this if things go wrong, it's just like, okay, now I'm not as worried because he's here. I want Jujutsu Kaisen to be as grim and as dark and as scary. And look, I love Yuji, but a lot of his best moments came from when Gojo was gone and it was hopeless and he had to solve his own problems. I don't want the sequels to not have that element. I want our heroes to suffer. Sorry, I know it's crazy, but suffering makes our heroes feel a lot more relatable and great. And we need that hopelessness that Jujutsu Kaisen is known for. We need it. Another reason as to why I think there's a fair chance that Jujutsu Kaisen doesn't continue after this is because we already have 3 parts of Jujutsu Kaisen, right? Part 1 is Yuta, Part 2 is Yuji, Part 3 is Marulu. And these stories have wrapped up amazingly well. Like, all 3 of our protagonists are essential to saving the world and eradicating cursed spirits for good. I think that if Jujutsu Kaisen were to end here, it would probably be a perfect story. A lot of people like to complain about the series and pretend like its problems are 100 times worse than they actually are. But to me, Jujutsu Kaisen ending here would honestly be just amazing. It ends perfectly at this point. If we eradicate cursed energy, everybody gets to live peacefully, no more suffering, no more fates determined by cursed energy, and I really can see everything just ending here and Yuji finally getting that peace that he's always desired. Remember, this would be like a very symbolic ending to Yuji because his story began with him having to die surrounded by people that he loves or just people in general, right? Just don't die alone like your grandfather did. This like harmony thing would kind of make him die surrounded by everybody on Earth. Like, it'd be a huge flip in a parallel on his grandfather and his wishes at the end. And again, you guys know I love to bring up the Buddha symbolism of Shikigarbha and Yuji and how similar they are and his
This semester, we are going to analyze a question together, which is how do societies behave? Why do we do what we do? What motivates us? What drives us? And there have been different theories as to what drives human behavior. Okay, so let's go over some theories. The first theory comes to us from religion. And the idea is that we are all driven in a war between good and evil. There's a good side to us and there is an evil side to us. There's Satan and there's God. And we are constantly in a battle in ourselves. Okay? Do we move towards Satan or do we move towards God? And that's the core of human civilization. So religion is meant to give us the strength to show us the path towards goodness. Okay, that's one theory. Another theory comes to us from biology. Okay, and the idea is sex. We want to pass on our genes forward because that's the point of our existence. If we cannot have children, we all will die. So the point of our existence is to have children and have them pass on their genes to others, okay? And for males and females, life is different because as a man, you have a penis. And all you have to do is stick your penis into a woman and you're good. Okay? That's all you have to do. So you want to stick your penis in as many women as possible. And that's the point.
What? Okay, is there anything I can watch that isn't about men and women? Oh my god.
Your favorite browser just got better. Again.
All anyone's talking about.
Meet the latest updates to Gemini and Chrome.
Hi, my name's Kevin Hicks. Welcome to the History Squad. Now, this video, which has been voted in by my Patreon members, hey guys, thanks a million, is about a chap called William Marshall, said to be the greatest knight that ever lived. His name in French, Guillaume le Maréchal. He served under 5 kings. The old Henry II, the young Henry, who served as co-ruler. Then we have Richard the Lionheart, followed by John Lackland, as they call him, John I, and finally his son, Henry III, the young king. Now, William Marshall, he was knighted in 1166. So what we're going to do, we're going to start off by having a look at his young life. Give us an idea what this man really was like. Now, William Marshall was born in 1146-47. We're unsure of the exact date. In fact, there's not much written about William's early life. We do know that he was the 4th son of John Marshall, and his mother was Sibylla of Salisbury. He was born in the most turbulent times. In 1135, King Stephen had usurped his cousin Matilda from the throne of England, and it literally plunged England into turmoil. Now, his father, John, at first was on the side of King Stephen, but he changed sides. 1139, he switches over to Matilda. Now, later on, 1152, there is a siege at Newbury Castle. Stephen has laid siege to the castle. John is inside, but the young 5-year-old, we understand, William Marshall, has been taken as a hostage by Stephen to guarantee his father's loyalty. But this apparently is what happens, is they take, and I've made a model here, young William, and they show him to his father, who's up on the battlements, and the king says, here he is, If you don't surrender, hand over this castle, we're going to shoot him from a trebuchet into the castle. And John Marshall turns around and says, go ahead. I have the hammer and the anvil to make plenty of sons better than that one. Well, what they going to do? They put the noose around the young William Marshall's neck, and as he's being led to the back of the trebuchet, he's talking to the guard, and he says something like, can I have a hold of your lance? Can I have a hold of your spear? And everybody is beside themselves. They're going to catapult a 5-year-old boy across the battlements. Well, William wins their hearts, and King Stephen cannot do him. Now, he will remain a captive, but I wondered, what happens when you catapult somebody from a trebuchet? So I thought we'd have a little go. Now, I don't actually know what's going to happen there. I've never hung anybody from a trebuchet. So don't forget, this is just a little model. Let's see what would have happened. I'm just going to let go of the arm. Yeah, I think that would have worked, and I can understand why King Stephen didn't go through with it. Can you imagine being the guard who's putting the noose around this little boy's neck, and he looks up and says, can I hold your spear, please, sir? So we know it would have worked and how terrible it would have been. It was quite successful, really. So I'm going to take this down now, and we'll carry on with the story. So the war between King Stephen and the Empress Matilda finished in 1153. So William Marshall, being the younger son, he's got no lands to claim or anything like that. He, at the age of 12, was put into night school. That's a good way of summing it up. He was put into the care of his mother's cousin, William de Tancarville. Now, Tancarville, they're in Normandy. It's the Chateau de Tancarville. Don't forget that I've mentioned this many times before. These people spoke French as their first language. They were Anglo-Norman. Now, the training that young William would have undergone was quite far-ranging. He would learn to read and write. Now, apparently, he wasn't very studious, and he did earn a nickname early on as Greedy Guts. He liked his food, and I can understand why. Because what we have here is a young man who's turning into an athlete. He loves horsemanship. He loves using the lance. He is an expert with a sword exactly the same as this. I know this because this is an exact replica of the kind of sword he would have used. It weighs 3 pounds. Have a listen to the steel in this blade. This is quite a sword. Now, he would have used training swords, of course. I've got to watch myself, hang on, so I don't stab myself. He would have used training swords, which can be a little bit heavier. But it turns out he's quite a young warrior. He was described as not having quite so much finesse with his swordsmanship, but he could hammer like a blacksmith hammering on the anvil. So he was brute strength and force, and you'll see how this develops as we go further on. He had to learn manners, so that when you're at the table, you don't blow your nose, you don't fart, you turn away and spit away from the table. When you share your cup, you wipe the rim when you've taken a sip, because it was often 1 cup between 2. But there will be a chance for young William to learn from his own mistakes. And what happens next is, because he is now becoming quite a warrior, he will gain his title, Knight from de Tancarville himself, 1166, and he will see his first action, and people then realise what a young warrior he is becoming. So, as I've mentioned, young William was knighted 1166. It was whilst he was on campaign with de Tancarville in the north of Normandy, and he's charged forward with everybody else. Get back, hold on. And he's eager to get to the front because he wants to charge the enemy. Well, they charge, he goes to the front. But what happens is he finds himself sidelined. He's been pushed into a courtyard. And he then sees an opportunity where he can hit the enemy, as it were, from the flank. And he charges straight into them, and they fall back. He then rejoins de Tankerville's men, and they all charge together. Now, William thinks, I'll do that again. And he pulls into this little enclosure, must be like a little bit of a farmyard. But when he gets there,
Hello, this is Shanoa. Now, regarding your question, you want to know what is Chris's true desires and intentions concerning his fellow person. Going by the cards, it seems that Chris does have a lot of hope for the future of humanity. And as such, it seems as though he is averse towards open acts of hedonism, as he does feel that this does bring down the vibrational energy of mankind. As far as for what he personally wants to do, it's represented in the final card of Queen of Swords. Chris feels like the best thing that they can do is to shoulder their burdens on their own and stick to their own work in life to try and make the world a better place. If you'd like to go into further details about this regarding what plans Chris has for the future, as well as what you can do for Chris, give me a call or send me a message.
also equivalent to 200 pack horses.
Oh my God, my back.
500 oxen, or 4,500 sheep. That shows you just how much Adestria was actually worth. Now, William Marshall has been invited to take part in a tourney, a tournament. The big problem for him is he doesn't have Adestria. He is going to ride a palfrey all the way to the tournament. He's going to be a bit of an embarrassment. Now, the tournaments in those days, nothing like the films. Now, I'm going to put together a little model. So William is about to enter his first tournament. But as I mentioned, it's nothing like the films. The early tournaments were basically just one massive battle. Everybody lined up and they charged against each other. They could be 2 or 3 miles apart on these fields, and then they would spend all day battering hell out of each other, I suppose you'd call it. And the idea was to capture your enemy knight. Then you've got his horse, you've got his armor, and if he's worth any money, you've got ransom. This is a way of making a reputation for yourself, and it's also a way of getting some money behind you, making you richer. But it was a free-for-all. It was absolute pandemonium, and a lot of people ended up with broken bones, broken teeth, and occasionally the loss of life. But an interesting thing came out of this. It was frowned upon if you injured your opponent's horse. Interesting. You can bash heck out of your opponent, but mind his horse. But there again, they were worth a fortune. They weren't a paltry sum, and that's the problem for young William Marshall. He's riding his palfrey, his riding horse, all the way to the tournament. Well, the constable belonging to the de Tankerville household took pity on him, and he says, look, we can't have you entering the tournament tomorrow on a palfrey, so you can have the last destrier in the stables that we've got left. So in he goes, and there's a monster. The reason it's the last destrier in the stables is nobody can ride it. It's a killer. So William Marshall has got himself a nice horse, but it's more likely to kill him as everybody else. So what does he do? He looks around the horse. What's wrong? Loosens the bridle, makes the horse more comfortable. Then he spends most of the night riding this horse around, getting to know it, What's the problem? And the next day, when they charge into the tournament, he does something. He sees an enemy knight or an opponent, and he grabs the bridle of his horse and yanks him and rides him off the battlefield. This nobleman who had money couldn't do anything about it. William Marshall has captured his first profitable knight. He does about 4 of them. He hammers men to the ground. At the end of this tournament, he is suddenly, yes, a warrior, but he's also a warrior, a knight, who has just a little bit of money behind him. Now, going on from there, 1168, William is taken into the service of his uncle, Patrick, Earl of Salisbury. So he's just, and they are escorting Queen Eleanor of Aquitaine, who just so happens to be the wife of Henry II, King of England, when they are ambushed by a rogue knight, Guy de la Signor. It's nasty, because what happens is they were not prepared for battle. They were only partially armoured or they were not armoured. Now, Earl of Salisbury, Patrick, is just dismounting his horse and runs straight through the back with a lance, killing him instantly. So he sees the death of his uncle. He now plunges into the enemy, fighting furiously. His horse is killed from under him. Whilst on foot, he draws his sword and he's hammering away at these rogue knights. This gives the Queen chance to escape. But William now, with his back to a massive hedge, he's fighting away when one of the enemy go behind him and they thrust a lance straight through his thigh. Now let me show you what the lance head was like.
I was hesitant to talk about Expedition 33 because it seems like most people are head over heels in love with the game, and I didn't want to be the sole dissenting voice. I didn't even record any footage until I reached the end of the game because seriously, I wasn't planning on talking about this. I don't want to be that guy that hates everything popular because it's not true. But I think it's worth offering a different perspective on this, so here we are. Expedition 33 is a respectable effort that succeeds in showing the wider audience that the turn-based genre is still worthwhile. There's plenty of passion that went into making this game, and that sense of passion is everything. Sometimes it could feel like modern dating.
The number 9 can be found woven throughout the unfathomable and ever-changing structures of life.
What?
A child abuser hidden in the dark web of the global paedophile community. Anonymous, furtive, boasting of his exploits, living somewhere in Asia. A team of detectives follow a trail of enigmatic clues, finally leading them to prolific paedophile, British national Richard Huckle. Huckle gets away with his crimes for 9 years. British police suspect he abused up to 200 children. He preyed on the vulnerable and the poor.
No tinge of regret, no remorse, nothing.
How does Huckle get away with his crimes for so long?
The Huckle case it didn't shock us anymore because there's so many Huckles, that are local, that are Malaysians, and the conviction rate is so low in Malaysia.
Why did Malaysia fail to protect its own children? December 2014. Richard Huckle writes on his public Facebook account. He's coming home for Christmas. He arrives at Gatwick Airport, London. Police officers are waiting for him, and Huckle is arrested, suspected of child abuse. The police confiscate his laptop and hard drives, but struggle to break the password. Released on bail, Huckle phones Pastor Paul Pakinathan, who's in Malaysia.
After he went back to UK, he called me from there. He called me and told that he was picked up at the airport. So arrested by the police as soon as he set foot on the airport. They asked him why. He said he doesn't know.
On Huckle's laptop and hard drives, police find over 20,000 indecent images of children. Huckle is charged with over 90 counts of child sex abuse, the majority committed in Malaysia.
If they have picked you up at the airport in London, of course my general question was, if it happened here, why weren't you picked up here?
With access to Huckle's online trail and court records, Undercover Asia has pieced together his story, how his crimes escalated, and how he got away with them for so long. We reveal the police investigator's online quest, an international operation that ended his abuse. The trail that leads police to Huckle begins with another case a few years back. Queensland, Australia. A paedophile is arrested by Task Force Argos, one of the world's leading hunters of online child sex exploitation and abuse from the Queensland Police Service.
Hello, this is Shanoa. Now, regarding your question, you want to know if Kelly's been depressed over the last few months and if she's gotten over her previous relationship. Going by the cards drawn, it does seem that she has been notably depressed regarding that, indicated by the Five of Cups. As far as getting over it, it's still been a long and arduous process, and there's still more work to come. This is indicated by the Seven of Pentacles being in the reverse position. So it seems that she is struggling a lot with getting over that connection. It's also warning from the final card that there will be another bout of a serious increase in her depression regarding this. So I would try to talk with her one on one or see what other ways you could support her. If you want to go into the further details of what exactly the future problems Kelly will face will be, what you could do to help her get past all of this, and what might lie ahead for her for the rest of this year when it comes to a relationship, give me a call or send me a message.
Communicating with each other is sharing as a community of pedophiles, a live community, which you can see updates coming in every second.
Inside the Love Zone, detectives scan the site and come up with a list of users, their most wanted. One member of the Love Zone stands out. He is Richard Huckle. But at this stage, they only know him by his username on the forum. It begins with the letter K. K is frequently abusing children and producing content to share with other users. But detectives don't know who or where he is. At this point, they have very limited access to the site. To take down their most wanted.
Hello, this is Shanoa. Now, regarding your question, you want to know if Lewis just blocked you. Going by the cards, it seems that Lewis did actually block you, mostly due to his inability to really come to terms with what he feels regarding you. It seems that he's really struggled with processing his emotions, and so this is a last resort for him to try and get some control of himself, or at least give himself a feeling of control when it comes to you. So I would just operate on the fact that he's purposely trying to sever connections with you from here on out. However, the final card with Ten of Swords being in reverse, it does show that he's going to try and find a way to still keep tabs on you while giving at least the image that he's completely done with you. If you'd like details on how he's going to be keeping tabs on you, as well as what the future may hold for both of you, give me a call or send me a message.
Do you have some music next? You don't have none? Okay.
Oh my god. Do I have to redo the whole thing?
Here he attends church services at the Community of Praise Church. Pastor Paul Pakianaban recalls his first impression of Huckle.
One thing I realized was he was a loner, looking for attention. That was very obvious with him. He really doesn't mix much with people at the initial stages. He just keeps to himself and his bag of belongings, so to speak, which he takes along. That's it. He can be a photographer. So you want to take photographs of functions and whatnot. All that. Fine, go away. He just comes up and says, hey, can I do this? Can I do this? You know? When he knows full well he doesn't understand the culture, he doesn't understand the lingo, yet he wants to come. So that gave me the impression that, look, the guy is looking for attention.
Despite his unfamiliarity with the culture, Huckle appears captivated. Learns Tamil, the language used by the Indian community for
I became passionately fond of Tamil culture and became very involved with the church and its members.
Emotionally blocked, going through, I don't know what he's going through. He's with some old hag that apparently he's just in those stages of like he's pissed off and blah, 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 blah. And I'm like, that's fine, it's not a relationship.
They had no reason to suspect anything untoward.
Emotionally blocked. Not a relationship.
He's a pretty helpful guy, yes. Later, I found out that he was very good English tuition to some of the children in their homes and whatnot, all that.
Huckle builds relationships outside the church. At this neighborhood in Kuala Lumpur, he discovers an impoverished community and volunteers as an English teacher to the young children.
Oh my god, it's been so slow today. Well, it is Monday. Yeah. It's Monday, so I'll go ahead and shut this down.
We speak to a local charity worker whom the children confided in. She's requested we conceal her identity.
ரிச்சர்ட் அக்கோ வந்த காரணமே எல்லாத்துக்கும் தெரியும். அவர் ஒரு போட்டோகிராஃபர், படம் எடுப்பாரு. கிராமத்து அந்த இடத்துல வில்லேஜ்ல அந்த கம்பத்துல படம் எடுக்கணும் அப்படிதான் சொல்லி உள்ள பூந்திருந்தாரு. அவரு அங்க தங்கின ஒரு இடம், அதே இடத்துல அவருக்கு எல்லா சலுகையும் கொடுத்துருக்காங்க. என்ன ஒரு நம்பிக்கையில படம் எடுக்க தானே வந்திருக்காரு சில பேர். சோ எல்லாத்துக்கும் ஒரு நம்பிக்கை, ஆமா இவர் படம் எடுக்க தான் வந்திருக்காரு, வேற எந்த நோக்கத்திலயும் இல்ல, சரி அவர் எடுத்துட்டு போட்டோம் அந்த இதுல. ஏன்னா